Senator Lee.
Thank you. Mr. Bernanke, I want to refer back to something that I understood you to have said earlier, which is roughly to the effect that Congress not engage in any deep spending cutting activities until such time as the economy recovers. If I understood you correctly, I think you were saying that if we engaged in too much deep cutting in the near-term future, that might thwart any recovery. First of all, did I understand you correctly in saying that? Was that?
It didn't say that quite precisely. What I said was that that you can do both. You can take policy actions which are supportive of recovery, and that would involve perhaps not doing sharp near-term cuts, but it might involve other things that might be helpful, like in the housing market, for example, at the same time that you provide clarity and a strong and credible plan for achieving fiscal sustainability. And those two things are not incompatible. Okay.
So a strong and credible plan, does that imply both spending cuts and tax reform?
Well, that's up to Congress. You can do, as I said often before, I'm in favor of the law of arithmetic. I don't care spending cuts, tax increases, as long as it adds up, and as long as the policies themselves make sense. I think that's what counts.
But do you have an opinion as to the rate at which that cutting might occur? I mean, are you suggesting not to cut more than $1 trillion over the first 3 years, or?
No, I don't have specific numbers, except to say that I think as you look at the amount of cuts, and somebody mentioned, I think maybe Senator Casey mentioned $4 trillion over the next decade or so to get stability in the debt to GDP ratio. Clearly that's something that can be done, with an increasing effect over the decade.
Now, there's a fair amount of empirical support for the notion that if you're wanting to help an economy recover, but you're also trying to balance the federal budget, that there are a couple ways of going about it. One way is to increase taxes. The other way is to cut federal spending, or perhaps a combination of the two. But the empirical evidence tends to support the notion that you'll help the economy recover faster if you focus primarily on cutting expenses rather than on increasing taxes. Do you agree with that viewpoint?
The empirical evidence is very complex. I mean, there's some literature which suggests that sharp budget cuts can lead to recovery, but that's only in limited circumstances. I don't think that's a general proposition. I think generally you ought to look at your tax and spending policies and ask, are these policies doing what we want them to do for our economy? And are the trade-offs that they engender good trade-offs for us?
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Lee.